document your thought process so that you can go back later and see, like, this is what I was actually thinking.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the 7Sage LSAT podcast. I am Nicole, joined with my other lovely co-hosts. Introduce yourselves.
I'm Bailey.
Well, that was awkward.
I'm ZeSean. Good morning.
I don't know how to make it less awkward than that. I'm like, okay. We're here with Bailey.
It's good if it's a little bit awkward.
I'm here with Bailey and with ZeSean. Today we're talking all about review, which encompasses a lot of different things. But the idea is a lot of us as students might be inclined to just be taking PTs, taking timed sections, doing practice every single day. But there's this huge important step that often gets slept on, and that's doing the review in between. So we're here to talk about ways to review, which they're not all the same, right? There are different ways to incorporate that, how we may review in our study routine. Yeah, maybe Bailey, what are your thoughts on reviewing?
Yes.
I can't do this today.
No, you're killing it. Okay, yeah, so I will start. I definitely fell victim to the wanting to just move on and get to as many questions as I could see as possible when I was studying. I did not spend a lot of time reviewing at all for the first, probably honestly year of my studying, because you guys know it was a year and a half. Now, 9 of those months, was I really studying? Barely. Maybe one day a week, maybe touching a drill, maybe just combing through a book. So, ignore all of that as like, it's not like it really took that 9 months to get to this point. But as soon as I started getting serious about studying, I still didn't know that I needed to be spending that much time on review. Like, I would look at my questions that I missed, I'd try to get the gist of why I got it wrong, and then I would just move on. I wouldn't write anything down. I would not do blind review. I just didn't know that I was supposed to be investing time in all these things. And I also was really frustrated that entire period of my studying because I wasn't seeing the score improvement that I wanted to. I wasn't really understanding why I wasn't getting more questions right every time that I did a new drill or a new section or a new PT. But I also wasn't paying a lot of attention to strategy or what I was doing right and wrong in real time when I was doing those drills. So things definitely changed after I, sucked it up, realized I got to spend a good amount of time blind reviewing and wrong answer journaling. And as soon as I started thinking about it more as an investment, it's going to pay off in the long run versus just like a waste of time that I was never going to get back. That also helped me kind of just encourage myself to do it more. I don't know. What was your guys' journey like when you were studying? Did you review?
Yeah, I thought it was a really beneficial step. Maybe we should define what we mean by blind review, right? When we're talking about blind review,
yes.
for all the listeners who are like, what do you guys mean by review? Like, yeah, I'm doing a drill and I look at the answers after. So we're talking about a very specific step of your studying known as blind review. Maybe ZeSean, can you walk us through like what a blind review session might look like?
Yeah, so put really simply, and there's better videos that explain this on the 7Sage website, but every question you ever do, you don't want to just look at it once. You want to look at it at least 3 times. So let's say you're doing a drill, 10 questions or so. You're going to do that drill timed. Then you're going to, before you check your answer, go back and revisit each of those questions untimed. And this time with a journal, either handwritten or typed, you're going to walk through A through E of every single question. You're going to document your thinking. I think this answer choice is wrong because, and you're going to give detailed reasoning. Or I think this answer choice is absolutely right because, and you're going to give detailed reasoning. You are not allowed to, in this step, be caught between 2 answer choices. You have to give firm reasoning for why you like the one you like and why you dislike the ones you dislike. Then you check your answer, right? On the 3rd pass, you come back and you see if your thinking matches up to how you were supposed to be thinking. And if you got tricked, you're going to write in your notes, hey, I got tricked by this answer choice because I thought it was supposed to be like this, but it's actually supposed to be like this. And so this method is all about documenting your thinking thoroughly so that you can see objectively what your thought patterns are and where they're flawed, where they're kind of messed up, and you can intervene, you can correct those thought patterns so that you don't make the same thinking mistakes next time. So if you're just doing questions once and moving on, you're doing it wrong. Review questions multiple times and walk through, either writing or typing, your thought process all the way through. I don't know if would you guys agree? Is that how you did blind review? I think that's how once I started doing it like that, things that definitely got better for me. I used to just do a question on a drill or on a PT and then I'd throw it away. And I did not learn anything from those. So yeah, anyway, that was a lot, but that's how I would
it was
do
really
blind
meaningful.
review.
Breaking it down,
Yeah.
that's helpful. Yeah, I've actually personally not gone all the way and done blind review that thoroughly before. When I'm doing blind review, I'm more so just thinking through things one more time, but untimed. I'm not necessarily writing things down. I usually save the writing down for wrong answer journaling. I think I'm just gonna, offer a lot of different ways to do this, and you guys can figure out, if you're listening to this podcast, what works best for you. But my question with that approach
Maybe I'm a
actually
little
is like,
intense.
that sounds awesome. Well, no, it sounds intense. It sounds awesome. Do you do that for every question on a full PT?
Yes.
That would take forever, right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would review a
impressive.
PT for 2 days afterwards. Yeah. But I took fewer PTs, but I feel like I learned more from each one.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know.
good.
Again, I'm
Well, that's why
maybe a
you're
little
here.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah. So just
We're
to
here
give, like,
'cause
the
we're
full
I'm a
array of
little crazy.
options. Yes.
Yeah.
So some people, I'd say that most of my students, especially in live class, when they get introduced to blind reviewing and then they find a way to make it work for them, what they're doing is they're going back, and after taking a full section or a full PT, they're going through and redoing questions they flagged in the first place. So you got that little flagging tool on 7Sage that allows you to make a little note on your question if you weren't quite sure about it, or maybe you got down to two answer choices, you just can't decide between the two. Something like that would be a good reason to flag. By the way, you can do that on the real LSAT as well. Check out Law Hub. It's the exact same interface as the real LSAT. But a lot of my students will go through and then they'll just go through and blind review questions they had flagged in the first place. Because if you're going through and redoing every single question for a PT, amazing if you can get yourself to do that. But I think for a lot of people, that just burns them out right away. They're going to get really discouraged. And even just like encourage yourself to amp up the blind review process by the first time that you do it. Doing it with just the flagged questions could be a good way to kind of ease yourself into it.
That's fair. Yeah,
I'm not gonna
everybody's
lie,
got to
I
start
also
somewhere. Go ahead, Nicole. Yeah,
I also
sorry.
did flagged questions, but as you were explaining it, it was giving me FOMO. Like I should have also done what ZeSean is saying. Because when I blind review, I was one of those people that did not want to blind review, period. I hated it. I just forced myself at least to do the flagged questions that I would flag as I was going. But sometimes, right, there's a question you didn't flag, you were 1,000% confident, and then that was one of the ones you got wrong. So you don't, like in my case, I wouldn't have even blind reviewed that. I would have just saw later, oh snap, I got that wrong, and I was so sure. So I actually think what ZeSean is describing, although kind of intense, at least when you're starting out and familiarizing yourself with the material, would be really, really helpful, like on your first timed drills. Especially because I feel like a lot of students think that the only analytics they could possibly get are those ones that are in like the 7Sage analytics page, which true. Those are extremely helpful analytics, right? They like break down, here are the questions that you tend to miss, here are the ones you spend a long time on, etc. But sometimes we'll have students that they look at those analytics and they're like, it seems so like, I don't know, I don't see any patterns. Like, oh, I missed like one NA question here, one weekend question here, one art passage here, but I'm not seeing any kind of pattern. So like, what am I supposed to take away from these analytics? Well, if you're doing a kind of blind review process like ZeSean is describing, it's not even like fully question type level. It's more like, here are the logical errors that you tend to be making. And then maybe you'll identify, even though these are all random questions, not random, but like different things I'm missing, the common thread is like, oh, I'm not the best at picking up on like analogies, or I'm not the best at diagramming like a conditional with this type of, I don't know, with a sum arrow or something. So it helps you spot those patterns in just like a different interface, I guess. So I think that's a really cool method. I will definitely advertise it and try it. Well, we're advertising here right now. So all you listeners.
No pressure to incorporate the most intent. I guess maybe what I'll say to, dial it back a couple notches is that when I'm talking to my students, I tell them, like, I lean towards do fewer questions, but review them more thoroughly. Like if you are burning through questions and you're only doing sort of one pass, not flagging anything, you just do the drill, you check the answers, oh, I got 3 wrong, and you move on. Like that's the method you don't want to be using. If all you've got is 10 minutes in a day, instead of doing 10 questions rapid fire, I would do one question and then thorough blind review, thorough wrong answer journal. That'll take up your 10 minutes. And there were certainly days working full time, like I didn't have a lot of time to study. And if I only had 10 minutes, I would do one question. Initially, I would try to burn through like 10, but I got a lot more out of just doing the one. And if you have an hour, rather than burn through two 25 question LR sections, do 10 questions or 15 with blind review, with wrong answer journal. That'll take up your hour. That's a much better hour spent than like trying to do 2 timed LR sections. This is, conditional on the fact that like maybe this is a little earlier in your studying. Obviously, when you're gearing up to the test, you want to put yourself in timed conditions. I'm all for that. But in your general drilling, fewer questions, more thorough, I would lean towards that over like more questions, rapid fire. I don't know if you guys agree. That's just my like rule of thumb.
Totally agree. Yeah.
That was
quality
so
over quantity.
wise. Get that tattooed. That was the most wise. This is why I say
what's your
ZeSean
tattoo gonna
drops.
say?
He drops the
all of that?
craziest wisdom.
Just some paragraphs.
Less questions, more review. That's what my tattoo says. Can I? No regrets.
Like across
I
your
don't know,
neck.
but- Literally. I'll get back to you on that. And at the end, dash ZeSean.
Yes. Yeah. Give me credit. Cite your
Good,
sources.
Verbal
No, but
copyright.
that was really valid. Totally agree. Especially
Thanks.
just to echo ZeSean, especially earlier in the study, like when you just finish the curriculum on like a question type, like let's say you just finished the module on MSS. I wouldn't recommend you just go out and do like 20 MSS questions back to back or anything and then see like, oh snap, I got 12 wrong. All right, on to the next day. It would be much more valuable for your time to just focus on doing sets of 2 questions, 3 questions, even less, like one challenging question, just to make sure you understand the reasoning and don't rush into just straight rapid fire over and over and over until you're, ready for those conditions closer to test day. Totally agreed.
Nice.
So that's blind review, really well covered. The process of like being 100% confident in your answers before you check the correct answers. But we have some other ways of reviewing too. Bailey, you mentioned the wrong answer journal. So maybe you want to tell us how you use that? Because I don't know, that could be a hot take too, that maybe not every single one of us used it in the same way. So it'd be cool to discuss.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm excited to see what you guys did. Yeah, so that was the main thing that I just needed to convince myself to spend more time on. I just would move away from questions that I knew that I got wrong and just be like, yeah, I see why I got it wrong. A lot of times I would just be like, reading mistake. Damn it, girl, read better. Like I would just be annoyed with myself. And then my takeaway would be read better, which like, how are you supposed to read better? What does that even mean?
I also,
So,
in my head,
not very
I would say,
practical.
damn it, girl, read better. That was literally what I would
Now
also
that's a
say to
good
myself.
tattoo.
So there's
Yeah.
no original experiences.
Yeah. Sorry,
That's
you
the
were saying,
tattoo.
Bailey.
Damn it, girl.
Tattoo.
Read
Yeah.
better.
Damn it, girl,
Dash
read better. I'll
ZeSean.
put that one on my forehead.
Yeah.
Amazing. So anyways, that wasn't super effective. How did I end up getting to a point where I could review more effectively wrong answer journaling? What do we mean when we're talking about wrong answer journaling? I personally kept mine as a physical journal. Like I like to just keep it handwritten, put it all in one place, make sure that I can kind of comb over it and look for trends. I would use a little highlighter to look for trends and maybe question types that I'm missing or takeaways that I'm giving myself. But what I'm writing in that journal is every single question, I'm going to log what the question was, of course, like PT blank, section blank, question blank. So I can always come back to it. And then what's the right answer? What's the wrong answer? Why is the right answer right? But then also, why didn't I choose this in the first place? Maybe I eliminated it. Maybe I didn't even read it. Maybe I overlooked it. Whatever that was, like talk through not only why is it right, but also your reasoning. How'd you end up in that situation where you eliminated the right answer? And then wrong answer. Why is it wrong? Why did I choose it? Why did I think it was the right answer? Like, how did I dupe myself? So that you can break down the thought process as well. And then what I think is arguably the most important column, the takeaway. What am I going to do better next time? Make sure that you have an action item, either a strategy and or a new drill set that you're going to put together. I like to do a little bit of both. Where I'm going through it, I'm making sure that like I'm going to turn read better into something more practical. Girl, you need to pause every couple words, get those into your own words, like translate as you go, and then continue on. The more that I wrote that down or other similar like ways to read better as a specific takeaway, and then I would try to like write it on my scratch paper to introduce it into my actual studying, like whenever I was taking a full section or a PT or a drill. I would hold myself to those takeaways, and then it would actually start to turn into I was getting more questions right in the future versus just, yeah, I guess I did something wrong there. Let's hope for the best next time. And then, you just keep hoping for the best and you keep not seeing the score improve. It's not helpful. Did that all make sense? What'd you guys do?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay.
totally. I'm curious to hear ZeSean's story. Let's hear it.
No,
What was your wrong answer
I
journal
would
like?
say mine is similar. I would say mine is
Okay.
similar.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it just, again, the main gist of it, that's what I'm hearing from you, Bailey, is like document your thought process so that you can go back later and see like this is what I was actually thinking. Because oftentimes what happens is like you'll see the right answer and you'll be like, oh, that makes sense, and you
Right.
forgot what you
Like,
were thinking
duh.
before. But if you document
Mhm.
what you were thinking before, you could see, oh, that's what I used to think. Now I think this, but I can see how where my brain was going before. And to have records of that is good for you to like investigate how your brain naturally thinks about things so that you can again intervene and get your thought process to align more with the LSAT way of thinking. I have a question.
Totally.
Did you guys ever go back and like redo old questions that you got wrong before, like after some time had passed, or were those just sort of
Ooh,
for the journal at
Oh,
that
that's a
point?
good question.
that's a
Nicole,
good
what you do?
question. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't wrong answer journal as well as I should have for LR specifically. I wish that I wrong answer journal more thoroughly for LR. For RC though, I was very on top of the wrong answer journal, specifically for looking for those kind of problems like, oh, was the right answer because I literally forgot that I read that, or like, did I remember what paragraph was that in? Was that in my low res summary, or did I like completely misunderstand what the point of this paragraph was? So I absolutely would go back and redo RC passages that I did badly on, um, especially if it was a passage like I get it. Some questions, like Bailey said, just read better, girl. Sometimes like you just make a silly mistake, even though there are. I mean, we're the whole point of what we're talking about today is they're not silly mistakes, right? There is actually a line of reasoning that's getting you there.
Right.
But some passages, like I just like genuinely wouldn't understand what was going on, like the flow of information, or I like misconstrued what the author's voice was, or some like huge misunderstanding. And then it was super helpful to go back to the whole passage again. I would wait a little bit of time, of course, so like I don't remember as thoroughly anymore, um, and just see if I have done a better job of writing my low res summaries and understand what's going on. Um, absolutely. What about you guys? Did you use your wrong answer journal to like make drills, Bailey?
So I wouldn't specifically use the wrong answer journal, but there's a little built-in thing on 7Sage that just allows you to re-drill questions that you last missed, either when you
Mm-hmm.
took PTs or just whenever you were drilling. And I just went through and I would create like a 5-question LR drill as a little bit of a warm-up most days. Basically, what I would do is I would give myself like 3 options for my warm-up each day. I could redo an RC passage that I've already read before. I could redo 5 LR questions that I last missed or that I missed with them when I last did them, and or this one I would try to make myself do every day, comb over my wrong answer journal, catch up on it. If I need to add anything to it, great. If I just need to comb through it for trends and focus on takeaways, focus on takeaways that I'm going to apply to my work that day, awesome. So like 15, 30 minutes, give yourself a couple different ideas, especially for RC, by the way. I would go back and just reread the passage even, especially if it's a passage that I just didn't understand in the first place. I'm going to focus a lot more on reading the passage for structure, getting in the test maker's head, seeing how they put together these passages. I think there's so much to be gained from redoing questions or passages that you've already seen before, even if you feel like there's not, because you're like, oh, I already remember the answer. Focus less on the answer, focus more on the steps that you need to take to get there.
Would you do it timed in that warm up, like a passage you've already done timed, or just untimed at
No,
your own
because
pace?
honestly, for the passage, I literally just reread the passage. Like I'm focusing a
Oh,
lot
okay,
more on
okay.
cementing my low res summaries and getting in the
Got
test
it, got
makers'
it, got it.
heads. I'm not a big fan of doing a lot of drills, especially like that timed. Personally,
Yeah.
I got a lot more benefit from doing drills and things like that untimed. I would do more timing related drills throughout the week to bring it together. But in terms of like individual question drills, or like especially when I was first studying the drills that ZeSean was talking about putting together, I did those untimed in the first place, and then I did wrong answer journal instead of doing blind review. So all this to say, there's lots of different ways to approach your studying. I don't think that there's like one right or wrong way. No matter what, though, we got to be investing time in reviewing, ideally blind review, wrong answer journal, and ideally also going back to questions that you missed when you saw them before. Because if you ever just leave those in the dust, I mean, probably not squeezing everything out of that question that you can.
Absolutely. And just as like a random comment, even when we say you're doing a drill untimed, like when you go into your 7Sage builder and there's no time constraint, you don't have the stress of counting down the clock. When you finish, right, 7Sage is still going to show you how long it took you to do each question.
Right,
so that's not to
exactly.
say
And
you
that's
need
really
to rush.
helpful.
Exactly. But if you are concerned about like how long things are taking you, at least you still be able to, you'll still see like, oh, this question took me 4.5 minutes. This one took me 3.5 minutes, whatever. So you don't have to have a time drill to see how long certain things take you. You can absolutely work on improving time, but still be doing untimed drilling every day. So as a nice little extra caveat there.
Thank you for adding. True.
Cool. So wrong answer journaling, blind review, kind of adjacent, but as you were talking, something this reminds me of is during RC, something I also kept to review on the daily was a dictionary or like my personal vocab list, I guess. I shouldn't say dictionary, like vocab list.
That's smart.
So
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Nicole
as
reads the
I'm
dictionary
doing
every day.
yeah, literally, I just combed through it every night as my nighttime reading.
Yeah.
I'm on the X's today.
Yeah. Thankfully,
so
it's not the GRE where you got to go memorize a bunch of vocab words.
Right.
Right.
Thank goodness.
do you have to do that on the GRE? That's
Well,
wild.
a lot of
there's
people
some
do.
GRE
They
words you're
learn
supposed
like
to memorize.
500 plus word. Yeah.
Oh snap! Well, good thing there's not as many crazy words, I guess, on the LSAT. But I would keep a
There
vocab
are
list
some.
because some words. No, yeah, there are some, and they tend to repeat. So if any of you listeners out there come across like a crazy 5-star whatever word that you've never seen before, you're like, I'm sure I'll remember what that means next time. It might be beneficial to just keep it written down somewhere, whether that's like a Quizlet, a Google Doc, a piece of paper, whatever. Something maybe you don't have to review it every day, but maybe something you review, like once a week, you just glance over your difficult words. I know I still have the list that I wrote. I don't remember necessarily any specific words. There's one that's coming to my mind right now, but I don't remember.
There's some
I'll get
funny
back
words
to
that I
it.
learned from the LSAT. I didn't know that. Oh my gosh. Wait, now I don't remember what the word. Oh, adverse effects. I didn't know that was actually supposed to be specifically negative. I just thought it meant side effects. So like that was a big one that I learned from the LSAT, and I was like, oh, I feel so silly, but whatever. Now it's in my brain. Purported. I feel like purported. A lot of people learn from the LSAT. It means somebody claimed to do something, but usually has this extra layer of sass where it's like they claim to do this thing, but they don't actually do the thing.
Ooh.
Yeah. Those are the ones that I can think
I'm
of off the top
thinking
of
of
my
a
head.
word. There is it arcane.
What's your word?
Arcane punishment. There's this one RC passage that's like talking about cruel punishments. Like watch me on the podcast be not even saying the right word with the right definitions. Hold on. Arcane. Wait, that doesn't sound like the right word.
Or
It's like-
archaic?
Oh, is it archaic?
Oh. No, I think there is a
very-
passage about arcane, but when you said arcane, I was actually thinking archaic, which is a good
Yes.
check.
Very old or old fact. There's literally a passage, and that's one of the questions. Is like, what do they mean? But what does the word archaic on blah 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 refer to, or something?
Oh,
but it's like an
interesting.
old-fashioned cruel punishment. Anyways,
Okay. Good to know.
that was my side
ongoing
quest.
vocab list. I think that's really helpful. I agree. Also, by the way, one thing that you want to put into that list, non-negotiable, is just all those quantifiers on the LSAT.
Yes.
Some,
Yes.
most, many, all, none.
Yeah.
What do those actually
Few.
mean? They mean something. Few, yes. I thought you just said you. I was like, what?
Yes, Bailey, you.
Put Bailey on your list. No, you got to know exactly what those mean, because I feel like I came into the LSAT thinking that some meant 2 or 3. I'd be like, some of my friends are coming over tonight. I definitely don't mean all my friends are coming over tonight. Now, technically on the LSAT, some means between 1 and all. So it literally could be all of my friends are coming over for dinner tonight. Feels weird.
And they're
but you gotta
synonyms.
kind of retrain your brain. Yes.
Like many.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly how you mentioned. Many, some, usually, tend to. All those words that are alluding to a quantifier, even though they're not one of our explicit ones, like all, some, most, etc.
Right. Exactly.
And if you want to get really fun, you got to start thinking about the opposites. Like, what's the opposite of
right. The
Ooh.
negation.
None.
logical
the opposite of
negation
none is not all, it's some.
Yes.
And how do you get
Exactly.
there? Well, you have to add a not. So the opposite of none is not none, which is some. The opposite of all is not all, also some. So the opposite of none and all are both some. Kind of tricky, right?
Mhm.
Not necessarily intuitive, but that's just, I guess, a good thing to keep track of is like, I would always flip all to none when I would try to negate it in my head instead of flipping
But really,
all
it's like
to
some, not, right? Yeah,
Right,
Yes,
some
to be
are
clear,
not.
exactly.
the opposite of, or the let's talk about logical negations, because opposite means
Yeah.
something slightly different. Negation just
Oh
means
yeah,
like
please,
basically
Bailey.
if we're talking
Yeah.
on a spectrum from 0 to 100, what does it not
Mhm.
encompass? But then just to be
Yes.
clear, the opposite, the negation of all is going to be not all. It's not the same thing as
Yeah.
some. Some could
Well,
include all.
I think ZeSean meant like
So,
some not.
some
Like,
not is another
yeah,
way.
yeah,
Some not.
exactly. But it's
Yes.
still like a
Yes.
some
Some are
arrow. Yeah.
not all.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you're right.
Perfect.
You're right. My
Absolutely.
bad.
And
Yeah.
No,
if
you're
we
good.
ever
I
get
think you said it right. I just
confused,
want to make it more clear.
if we ever get confused, I just like literally draw a number line on my paper, like how JY does in some of the
Same,
explanation
like keep a
videos.
spectrum.
Yeah,
Yes.
like shade in if you're doing like all, right? Like shade in
That's everything.
100, and then whatever's left, right? 0 through 99.999 would be your negation, right? So like everything else, some are not. So it just helps to keep track of it on a number line too. But that just could be another aspect of your reviewing is writing down, making some diagrams, writing some logic, doing some conditionals. Oh, and
Right.
honestly, actually, good segue. As you're blind reviewing, I was thinking this earlier, like when we're talking about, think about your thought process and like what are mistakes you made. It might sound kind of like ambiguous when we're saying it out loud like that. Like, what do you guys mean by like the thought process? Like, okay, maybe you negated something wrong. Maybe you diagrammed in the wrong direction, like your sufficient and necessary were swapped. Maybe you made an assumption that was unwarranted, or like there are concrete mistakes we're talking about that could be made and like documented. So things like messing up your logic and your negations. I'm trying to think, well, what are some other like common, I don't want to say common, but what are some other like mistakes of reasoning you could catch while reviewing that you might look out for?
Mm-hmm.
A big one is like
question.
misidentifying the conclusion. Like you thought the wrong
That's what I was
sentence
gonna
say.
was the
Ooh.
conclusion of an
Yep.
argument. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes, that is like the most vital skill. If you are not consistently, first of all, just trying to identify the conclusion in every LR question that has a conclusion. So it's going to literally be every single stimulus except for must be true, most strongly supported, must be false. Any other stimulus, you need to be identifying that conclusion first. Like at first, just try. And then my next thing is, are you doing it right? If you're trying, amazing, good work. Now let's start getting more accurate, because I think a lot of people are trying, but they're not doing it super well. Maybe they don't have good strategies to identify the main conclusion. I just use two tests. Number one, why do I have reason to believe this in the stimulus? If I can't point to a reason to believe the claim in question in the stimulus, no way it's my conclusion. Conclusion needs to receive support from something in the stimulus. And then I'm just going to pit a potential conclusion against another potential conclusion. If, two sentences give conclusion vibes, for lack of better words, I'm going to go A, therefore B. So does knowing this statement give me more reason to believe this other statement? Whatever is receiving support is being given more reason to be believed by everything else in the argument is the main conclusion. The rest of it was either a sub-conclusion if it received support from something else, but then also gave support, or it would be a premise, which is just giving support, making something more likely to be true.
That's a good test. Yeah, and that could be like your takeaways in your wrong answer journal. Like for the next time, I'm going to use a test like this.
Yes, perfect.
Exactly. Maybe like I'm trying to think of other like I don't want to say stereotypical mistakes, because like every question is very different and there's all these different things that can go wrong. But some things you might look out for, maybe like in flaw questions, picking an answer choice that's not actually a flaw or not descriptively accurate, right? Practicing you're learning your flaws and making sure you know which ones are flaws and what things aren't flaws. Things that are maybe question specific or just in general, like errors in reasoning, like we mentioned, like labeling the conclusion or messing up your indicators or something.
Something. Oh wait, sorry, you can go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say something that comes to mind, like that people do a lot, is for any of those question stems for LR that have if true in the question stem. I think a lot of people just ignore that going down these answer choices. For example, weaken, strengthen, resolve, reconcile, explain. Any of these, they're asking us which one of the following answer choices, if it's true, actually has the intended effect. Weakens, strengthens, or helps explain something. And so I think myself and a lot of people will go down and make sure that they... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. A lot of people will be going down those answer choices and then be eliminating an answer choice because they're like, oh, I don't know if this would actually happen, or I don't know if this is true. It's not supported by the stimulus. If you realize that you're eliminating answer choices for a reason that the question stem itself would not allow you to eliminate answer choices for, goodbye. Stop doing that. So if true,
That's
really
a good
means
one.
that you assume that the answer choices are true. Like some of them is just following the rules or following what the question stems tell you to do, but it can get hard when it all comes together.
Yeah, that could be another common issue, is just like reading the question stem carefully. Absolutely.
Right.
So we've covered some strategies for blind reviewing, for reviewing in general, whether that be blind reviewing, having a wrong answer journal, or keeping something like a vocab list. We've also talked about some, mistakes, some commonly made errors that you might look for as you're doing reviewing. Things like mixing up quantifiers, how you diagram, reading question stems carefully, labeling arguments, etc. I think we've done a good job of covering a lot of reviewing, giving, hopefully the listeners some good tips of how you can incorporate reviewing into your daily routine, like whether that be a warm-up like Bailey talked about, or just every single drill you work on like ZeSean talked about. So we wish you all fantastic luck incorporating reviewing into your daily routine. And hopefully you find it beneficial and it helps you get past some of those plateaus and whatnot. Thank you all.
I'm loving this. I'm like waiting for the one scene of all of us with our thumbs up at the same time.
That's going to be the thumbnail.
Yeah. Right, thank you guys so much for coming. Good recap.
Yeah, thank you all. Feel free to interact with us in the comments. You're better at this spiel, Bailey, but
comment. Ask us questions. We're always choosing questions to make sure that we are responding to. So you can always send those questions to our email, podcast@7sage.com. You can comment on any of our videos, on any social media, especially YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. Come back next time.
Yeah, ditto. What she said. -Bailey. Tattoo all that. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Tattoo all that.
That was going on my cheek.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Happy studying. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.